Well, good morning. Good morning, everyone. I am going to introduce myself, and great, you are sharing my screen now. My name is Melody Buckner, and I am the Associate Vice Provost for Digital Learning at the University of Arizona, which is located in Tucson, Arizona, in the United States. And I am going to be talking to you today about productivity and creativity in the classroom and why it is so important. And I'm going to be sharing a lot of resources with you. So that's why I have my screen shared today, because I'm going to be going through a lot of information for you. I want to thank you for inviting me here today and being able to share my passion. So, I've got a lot of stuff to show you in the next 30 minutes. So I'm going to go ahead and dive right in. First, just a little bit about me. One, I just want to make sure everyone can hear me. So if everyone's going good, could I hear like a thumbs up in the chat? It says, "Hi, Melody." I see some things going on. So yes, it looks like everyone is hearing me. Great. Okay, then I'm going to continue. So my role at the university is we have 18 colleges within our university, and I work in the Teaching and Learning Center, and I assist the faculty in all of these colleges. We have over 5,000 faculty, so this is a lot of people that we work with. I get to work cross-discipline. It's a really exciting job. It's like the place that I love being the most in the world. My research covers educational technology, which is what I'm going to be talking to you about today. Also, digital and creative literacies, which I'm also going to be sharing with you today. And not so much multicultural education, but since we are in a very diverse group of people, I feel like I'm also in my sweet spot. I started my academic career off many years ago. My first degree is in the College of Architecture. I was a 3D animator, a programmer, and so I really have this passion for creativity and technology. I went on later in life to get my master's in educational technology and finally rounded it out with a PhD in teaching, learning, and sociocultural studies, where I focused on digital literacies, and that's where my real passion lies. So more information can be found about me. It's an older website. I really need to update it, but it's just my name, melodybuckner.com. You can find out more about me than you would ever want to know on this site. So I'll kind of stop talking about myself, and you can explore that if you want. You can also explore my unit. If you go to ucat.arizona.edu, you will find the unit that I oversee at the University of Arizona. So just want to talk about my outcomes for today. I know that we have a lot of educators here from all over the world, and I want to identify some productive and creative technologies for you to use in the classroom. I also want to describe some strategies where you can apply these technologies, and I'm going to give you some examples. And then I'm going to talk about authentic assessment, getting away from just traditional assessment methods and going to more authentic assessments where students feel really empowered to demonstrate their knowledge instead of just taking like multi-choice test or, things that I, as a student, grew up demonstrating my knowledge, kind of doing it a little differently now. And then I just want to touch on how artificial intelligence is coming of age. And we're talking a lot at the university level right now. So I just kind of wanted to touch on that because we are talking about educational technologies. Okay, so let's dive in. So why is it important to use productive and creative applications in the classroom? I'm going to give you a very personal story because I teach at the university level, and I think that we need to prepare our students to be good citizens of the world and to be ready to go into the workforce and be prepared to step in and feel comfortable as a productive employee, but also as a good citizen. So I'm going to share my son's story. His name is Bryce, and he was at the university and he was taking all of the classes. He goes to the university where I teach, and he was taking all of his classes and he was learning what he needed to learn. But somehow there were skills that he wasn't being exposed to. And I talked to him about this and he said, well, Mom, I really need to learn like word processing skills. I really need to learn how to network. I need to learn some creative applications because once I go into the world, he was a business student. He goes, the company that I'm going to is going to need me to have these skills. They're not going to hand me a pen and a piece of paper when I enter the workforce. They're going to hand me a computer or a tablet or a phone, and they're going to expect me to know how to use these things. So I started working with faculty on getting them to teach students more about these applications. One of the things that we're blessed to have is Adobe Creative Cloud. And I'm going to show you some free products for Adobe that you can have access to. But he got really involved in learning the Microsoft products, the Adobe products, and the Google products. And he built a portfolio. And when he started interviewing, a proud mom's going to come out right now. He got 5 job offers. Now he got 5 job offers and that was great. And he turned them all down. And I was like, oh my goodness, what are you doing? And he said, well, Mom, this isn't really the industry that I want to be in. He goes, he's a cyclist, he's an athlete. And so he decided to go into the cycling industry and he applied to 2 different jobs in the cycling industry. And he ended up getting a really good job at corporate level with a bike company called Trek. If you're a cyclist, you may know Trek. And they said one of the reasons that he was hired is because he had these he had these soft skills or these application skills. So it just really got me to thinking about how important is it that our students really know these type of technologies as they go out into the world. So I've started an original study. It's called an impact study, and we're exploring the possible impacts access to creative and professional software applications have on the undergraduate student population. So I'm only in the 2nd year of the study. It's a 7-year study, and I'm meeting with students and having focus groups and talking to them about the importance of having these kind of applications in their formal and informal education. So that's one of the things that I'm doing as a researcher. One of the things I wanted to talk to you about today was the paid versus the free software applications. And we introduce both into our classroom. We want our students to have agency when it comes to choosing the applications that they're using. What we find in corporate America is that a lot of our careers or our jobs or our employers want our students to know Microsoft. They want them to know Adobe and they want them to know Google. But there's also a lot of specialized applications out there. And we need to talk with our employers and make sure that we are exposing our students to those applications as well. But there's a lot of free applications out there that are just as powerful as the ones you can pay for. So when you go into your classroom, you may not have the resources to have the paid versions, but if you can show your students the free versions of these or other applications, you're at least exposing them to the process and you're making them feel comfortable so that if they have to jump to another technology, they will feel comfortable in learning it. So it just depends on where you are in the world and what your students need. So that's something you really need to talk to the people around you, whether it's parents, whether it's other teachers, whether it's employees, or best yet, whether it's your students. So it's really important that you have conversations around what kind of software applications are needed. So today I'm going to show you a couple, and I'm going to give you some resources for you to explore. I will make this slide deck available to you so you will have all of these links. But what I'm going to do is I kind of have them queued up on my computer so we can jump right to them. This is a really good site that's open to everyone. This is from my university, and I wanted to talk to you about Adobe Express. This is a free application from Adobe, and I think this is something that you can teach your students how to use if you have internet access. It's like a PowerPoint presentation, except that it's more dynamic. So I would encourage you to dive in and look at Adobe Express because it is a free application. The other one is Microsoft. Microsoft is not free, but there are a lot of employers provide this to their employees once they come in. Teams is a really powerful way that people are starting to communicate more and more. And I didn't realize my Teams was going to be opening up, so I think I'm going to go away from that. But it's a way that people are communicating together. And so even though it's not free, it's something that you can look at and get your students to think about. Microsoft Excel is probably the one that for business is the most useful. So that's Microsoft. The next one is Google, and I wanted to just talk about Google for Education. There's a lot of teamwork that can be done in Google for Education. You might be familiar with it. There's even a Google Classroom where you can set up your own classroom and provide information. So Google's a really powerful product. I believe it is free to a certain point. And again, it's a place for you to start and to let your students be exposed to this kind of technology. Another thing I wanted to talk to you about, these were the technologies I kind of wanted to cover, but there's a theory behind this, and it is universal design for learning. This really goes back to my architecture days. We studied universal design, which means that we are designing buildings and spaces for people, for everyone. One example is in the United States, we have sidewalks, and sometimes it's hard for someone with a disability to step off a sidewalk. So what we've done is we've done cutouts in the sidewalk so people can roll or not have to step off the side. Well, by doing this, we were originally, doing this for people with disabilities, people in wheelchairs or on crutches. But what we found out is this design actually helped people, mothers with strollers, kids on skateboards, kids on bikes. It ended up helping all of the population because we were doing a universal design. Now let's go to education. And this is a fantastic site. So I'm not going to dive really deep into it, but I really want you to explore Universal Design for Learning guidelines, as it has a lot of really rich information about how to make content accessible for everyone, not just people that have a disability. So I could give a workshop on this whole theory. So I think you should dive into this. I also wanted to kind of show you some free learning that's available through Coursera. These are massively open online courses, MOOCs. And this one is really good for learning technologies, foundations, and applications. My colleagues at the University of Illinois have designed this course. It is free. You can go in and just learn, and it will go over a lot of the foundations that I'm talking about today. Okay, time is getting away from us. So I wanted to go over a couple of free applications that you can actually take right into your classroom. The first is VoiceThread. VoiceThread is a fantastic, technology that you can have a visual online discussion. And I am going to show you one of these discussions. So it starts out by me, the faculty, recording my voice over a slide. So we're going to listen just a minute. So what I do is I have a slide and I pose a question, and then I have my students come in and they record themselves. This really allows you to have an authentic discussion. The thing that was really exciting to me about VoiceThread is that I was teaching multicultural education. We were talking about some topics that were, uh, just a little bit, controversial. And I wanted to make sure that my students were not becoming aggressive. And so I figured the best way to do this was to make them come on camera and to have their own voice with their own emotions. And it really worked. I didn't have anyone ever be aggressive. Everybody was kind because both their voice and their face was on camera. VoiceThread is one of my favorite technologies. It is free. So all you have to do is go to voicethread.com and you can explore that one. The next one that I wanted to talk about, I'll show you here, is Padlet. So this is a great tool because you can, I was going to set one up for us. I don't think we're going to have time. So I'm just going to take you to one that I participated in earlier this week. We were talking about AI and policy considerations. There was a large group of us. And what we did is we talked about governance, operation, and pedagogy. But what was fun about this, if I wanted to make a comment as a participant, I would just hit the plus button. I would type in my subject, and then I would write something, and then I would post, and it actually posts so that I can, as a teacher, be able to go in and read what everybody says. I'm not going to post right now. But you can see that we had a lot of people participating in this. And now I can go back later and read everyone's comments. So this is really a powerful tool. The last tool I'm going to talk about is called Flipgrid. And Flipgrid is using video to talk to your students and have your students talk back to them. So I did this last night really quick. I just recorded myself. So that's how you would prompt your students. Oops, didn't mean to do that. That's how you would prompt their students. And then your students can actually video themselves and respond back to you. The great thing about Flipgrid is that you can use it on a phone. So you can record on a phone. You don't have to have a computer and you can upload. So that gives students a lot of agency around that. Another resource I wanted to give to you was this book. It's called Exploring Digital Technology in Education, Why Theory Matters and What to Do About It. And this is a Google book, so this is available to you to read. I think it's really important to really think about theory and think about application when it comes to technologies. I have a lot of faculty who come to me with shiny toys, as I call them. They find a really cool technology and they want to use it in the classroom. And I'm like, that's great, but what do you want to achieve? And I think sometimes we need to shift that paradigm and say, what do you need? And then let's choose the technology instead of just bringing the technology in and trying to fit it in because it's a cool technology. So those are some things to think about. Some strategies. I was going to show you my course, but I'm running out of time. Let's see if I can do it really quick just to show you some of the things that go on in my course. Let's see. I'm going to go to my multicultural education class. This is our learning management system. So these are the ways that I engage with my students. And I think video is really important, and I think creativity is really important too. We live in a society now where people are just exposed to so much media, And so what I try to do is engage my students with media. So here's how I start out my class. I have some driving questions. I tell them what they're going to be learning. And then I use a video. You're going to see this video was done a long time ago. So just going to play a couple seconds of it. Hopefully you can see this. This was a video that was produced by me and one of my videographers.
Which is the district office of Tucson Unified School.
So what I try to do with this type of video is I try to intrigue my students. I get them to kind of be curious about what we're going to be talking about this week. And I do it through media. And I think that video is really, really powerful. I'm going to show you one more just to kind of show you that it's kind of a teaser. It's to get them interested and engaged in the content of the week. For this week, we actually were just introducing ourselves. So this is my syllabus for the week. We have an overview. We have the outcomes. These are what the students are going to be doing. They have a weekly project, and then we have discussions and quizzes here. But just to show you how we kind of make the online part of online part of education human. So we were teaching this course together. So this really makes us a little more human in an online class. So students actually get to see us. It's funny when I go around campus, students will come up to me because sometimes I teach large classes online, and they'll be like, "Oh, you're my professor," and it's kind of funny how you feel like you're a little bit of a celebrity because you are now, providing these videos online, and a lot of people are watching them. So I think that creativity and video is really important in teaching these days, and it also helps us to find our passion. I think a lot of times students are really they get excited about doing this kind of passion work. Which I'm going to my last. I know I'm going. I don't have a whole lot of time left, so I want to talk about authentic assessment practices. And this is going away from just the memorization and really thinking about students doing narratives. So I did this narrative pedagogy. I just wrote an article on this. It's not published yet. So I did find this instructional design blog where he talks about digital storytelling. He talks about digital storytelling as a pedagogy, using it to have students demonstrate their learning for you, and talking about how important storytelling is and teaching students the art of storytelling. Sometimes I think we have lost this art. And so it's also really good for just communication purposes. And also when students are going out into the workplace and doing interviews, being able to tell stories within their interview makes them a lot more personable. So this is a great read. So I'm going to leave that for you. And then I'm going to talk a little bit about why I found this as a narrative pedagogy as such a powerful force. It's what I did my dissertation on. I did 4 years of research in the field where I traveled around the world with students who were in study abroad programs. And what I was finding is the assessments they were doing to demonstrate their learning after a study abroad program, they weren't real excited about. They were like, yeah, I have to write a research paper, or yeah, I have to do a presentation to my group, or yeah, and it just like the whole life went out of it. And I was like, well, what did you learn? And they would get so animated and so excited when they would tell me their stories. They would share the music. They would tell me about the food. They would tell me about the people that they met, and they would just really come to life. And I said, well, why don't we do some storytelling around what you learned? And so for 4 years, I did that with 4 different programs. And what I found is I found so much richness. You can read my dissertation, but this site kind of gives you some ideas of what I found and how powerful using using digital storytelling as an authentic assessment practice was for students to get excited about showing what they learned instead of being stressed about taking a test. Okay. And this is kind of what I wanted. This is, kind of wraps it up in a bubble. And if you lecture to them, they passively listen. You ask them to apply and they take action. You get them to be creative and they produce something wonderful. You have them teach others and they truly internalize what they have learned. So my last point will just be a little bit about artificial intelligence and creativity. AI has become the big thing in the United States. I'm imagining it's all over the world. And we're really struggling with it at the university and how to handle artificial intelligence in the classroom. So we're having some different policies around it. I'm telling everyone to write those policies in pencil because things are changing so fast that you don't want to stymie or pull things back. But we really need to prepare our students how to use AI, not only in the academic world, but in the world that they will be going into once they start their career. There's a lot of challenges, but I think there's even more opportunities. So if you haven't played around with AI, I would encourage you to dive into Chat GPT. I asked this question: how do you add diversity and equity by using universal design for learning into a course? And I got some really good ideas. So I think there's a really great opportunities for using this. I also used it in creativity. I asked AI to create a field of sunflowers for me. This is what it came up with. So I think the first thing that you need to do is really dive into AI, figure out how you like to use it, and then figure out the best way for you to use it in your classroom. So I hope that you had some good takeaways from today. I hope that you came away with some productive and creative technologies that you might incorporate in your classroom. I hope I gave you some strategies, some ideas to think about. Talking about authentic assessment practices and why digital storytelling could be a way for students to demonstrate what they've learned, and then the impact of AI. I do have a Padlet if you want to add on to this. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to grab this and I'm going to go back to my screen here. And if you could put this in the chat, I don't have a way to put this in the chat, then people can actually go to this Padlet and they can upload some ideas. And with that, I think I'm done with my presentation. So I'm going to put it away and come back to the group, and you can stop sharing my screen and I can answer any questions. Don't know if I have questions over here or not. Do I have any questions? Which one would be suitable for secondary level? Of the ones that I showed you, VoiceThread is a really good one. So is Padlet. Padlet is a really good one because students actually get to take action. And it's really easy, it's free, and it doesn't require a whole lot of technology. So that one's probably the easiest one to get students to engage with you electronically. Can we add in this Padlet? Yes. Yes, you should be able to. Oh, I hope I don't have to approve you. I wonder if I have to approve you. There are many useful resources. It is important to know how to use and how to integrate them into the activities. Yes, and that's what we do at the University of Arizona. I have 75 people that actually help faculty do that. So it's going to be hard for me to demonstrate that in this brief time. But yes, there's a lot of resources online. If you go to that Adobe site, you will be able to get some free resources on how to do some integration of like Adobe Express, which is like a PowerPoint. So yeah, it's a learning curve, I have to tell you. We use Teams even after COVID for communication with students and colleagues. I use Padlet in my work. I am satisfied with both these two. I am less familiar with Flipgrid. Flipgrid is pretty cool because if students have phones, they can actually use those. And it's a lot of fun. So it's just is another way for them to communicate with you. And I might have to approve people. So once I get offline, I might have to approve people for the Padlet. So once I get offline, I will approve people and you can be putting in comments. Thank you. I appreciate it. It's been fun to be here. Share my passion.
Dr. Melody, any last word for Global Forum?
I think this is a wonderful forum. I think you are doing fantastic work. I am so impressed by the work that you do and the passion that you have for this work. So thank you so much for everything that you're doing. And I'm excited to be part of this community.
Afternoon, good evening, good morning, whatever applies wherever in the world you are. I would like to start my presentation by first thanking Dr. Munir Musa for working very hard, putting this forum together, and giving me this very unique honor and privilege to share my experiences and expertise with you virtually. I really thank you for your time and thank Dr. Munir Musa for providing this opportunity for all of us to share. In my field, I personally believe that sharing is caring. And this forum really provides that opportunity for us to share and show that we care. So thank you, Dr. Munir. What I want to share is, of course, about issues in language testing. And I see my slides are not showing well. So Dr. Munir, can you help with that? Let me see. Yes, I think, okay. So first of all, a little bit about myself. My name is Sadiq Popal. I'm an associate professor of applied linguistics at the University of San Francisco in San Francisco, California, USA. I've been working and teaching there for the last 20 plus years. And in my department, we basically train teachers, those that they want to earn a master's degree in teaching English as a second language, and send them around the world to teach English. We get students from all around the world to get their master's degrees. We also provide degrees and doctoral degrees in education generally, but also in multicultural education, in racial justice education, in human rights education, and learning and instruction, and also an organization in leadership. So these are 3 to 4 years doctoral programs, and I also serve as a in the doctoral committees or on the doctoral committees on the dissertations and lead and help students do their research. My research is usually concerned or focused on topics on applied linguistics, social linguistics, bilingualism and biculturalism, and also issues with code switching and code mixing in bilingual communities. I have taught English and trained teachers in more than 6 different countries and 3 continents. So I have trained teachers in Germany and South Korea. I've been there actually 13 times, in China, in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the United States. In the United States, I have taught at every level of education, at elementary, middle school, high school, adult school, community college, and university. So I'm here to share my expertise and experiences in issues in language assessment. And so it is one of the courses I teach actually at the University of San Francisco. And the title of the course is Second Language Assessment and Testing in Second Language Proficiency. That's what the title of the course is. So I'm just going to go over what this presentation entails. Let me see if my slides work this time. It looks like it is working. Thank you, Dr. Munir, for your help. So it is, I still have problem with my slides. Mr. Musa, Dr. Munir Musa, could you help and put it on the right place? It's apparently not working. Yeah, do you hear me and see me?
Yes, sir, I can see you.
But I need to show my slides and I can't right now. Okay. Yes, this looks like I could do that.
Dr. Popal, would you like me to share your slides?
Yes,
Anything
please.
for you?
Yeah, that will help.
Okay.
Sorry for this technical glitch. I did expect that. Dr. Musa and I worked on it that last time, but still I see that there's a formatting problem with the slides. So technology doesn't always go as smoothly as we expect it to go. This is something that we take it for granted, but sometimes it backfires. Okay. So this is the content of my presentation. So we're going to talk about assessment and testing. A lot of time the two words are used interchangeably, but in linguistics and also in education, we make a distinction between when you test, what is it that you do? When you assess, what is it that you do? So we're going to talk about that, make those distinctions. The other thing that we're going to talk about, that the need for language testing. Why do we have to do that? Because the word testing is kind of a scary word. A lot of people get scared of it. And then the types of testing. For what is it that why? So one thing is, do we need testing? And if yes, what kind of testing we need? And so I'm going to talk about the type of testing, the purposes of testing, and then as language teachers are teaching anything, actually, whether you teach language or others, you need to find out where the students are. So you need tests. How do you judge how good a test is? So we're going to look at the characteristics of test. So these are what we call it issues in testing. And I'm going to list about, or give you a list of about 12 or 13 different characteristics that when you purchase a test, when you adopt a test for your class, when you plan to use a test for your class, you need to look and see and compare which test has more of these characteristics. And when you want to develop your own test, it's a good thing to put these characteristics on your table and see that whether your test, the test that you're building, the test that you're writing, the test that you're authoring has those characteristics. So I'm going to share all of these with you and then answer your questions at the end. So can we go to the next slide? So the distinction that we make, as I said, if you look at many dictionaries, they say assessment means testing and testing means assessment. And actually, this is not the case when we talk about in real life or in classrooms. A test is more like that formal definition of the word. So it's a method of measuring a person's ability, knowledge, or performance in a given area. Why is it that we need, as language teachers, my presentation is usually focused, or mainly focused for those of us who teach English as a second foreign language, or any language as a first or second or foreign language. So the most important principle in language teaching, in language instruction, is what we call it I+1, comprehensible input. That when you teach anything, actually, although I emphasize the word language teaching, but whether you teach math or you teach physics or biology or anything, or computer literacy or computer classes or anything else, you really need to find out where the students are, how much they know, so that you can put them in the right place. So you need to determine their their current level of competence. And how do you determine that? A test will do it for you. And that's why we need what? We need a placement test to find out where the student is and where we can take him from there. My next slide will show you that principle of I+1. So it's a test measures the general abilities. It shows how prepared the person is for for what you're going to, the person is going to experience. But the most important thing is what? As an instructor, as a teacher, what is it that you can present to that person? That will be determined by what? By a test. Okay, can we go to the next slide, please? Oh, actually, my next slide. Okay, that doesn't show that one. That is fine because that's an older one, but that's fine. So I was going to talk about this I+1 principle, and that I already covered that. I had a visual to show you. And that visual shows that what? You need to find this. This was the work, the one that I talked about was the work of Stephen Krashen from the University of Southern California. And he came up with this idea that when you teach something, you need to find out the student's current level of competence. Because you cannot, if you teach somebody something which is way above that person's current level of competence, that person will feel bored and feel bad and will not learn anything. And if you teach him something below his current level of competence, then the person will feel like what? It's a waste of time. So the most important thing is that what? That we need to find that that current level of competence. That he calls it I+1. We need to teach at one level above the current level. And the only way that you could find that one, or one of the ways to find that one, at least in language learning, it is the test. So you need to give them a test to figure that out. Although Dr. Krashen made this I+1 business or issue or principle in 1978, but it was way before that. Dr. Vygotsky came up with this idea of zone of proximal development that's very similar to what Dr. Krashen was talking. So this theory, this idea of making the input I+1 has been in the field for a long time, and the way to figure it out is to test. Assessment, on the other hand, is kind of an informal evaluation of what the student knows and how you can bring improvement and how you can basically fill the gaps. So while the test has consequences, a person may pass, a person may fail, a person may be placed on a different level, assessment does not. So as teachers, we always go to the class, talk language teachers, you talk to the students, even by talking to them, by just a casual conversation, you listen to the way that they pronounce the words, you listen to the way that they put the words together to see their syntactic competence, and then you make these subconscious kind of what? Evaluation of how much this person needs to develop or where the person is. And probably in your next lesson or next chapter, you try to fill these gaps. That is called, what we call it, assessment, which is different than testing, because testing has consequences, while assessment is what? Is more for the purpose of bringing improvement. In a good teacher, and I'm sure that all of you that you're spending your time from 7 to 9 tonight, you're all good teachers, excellent teachers, that you have so much concern for your students that you are sitting there and watching these shows and these videos and lectures in order to improve your knowledge, in order to serve your students better. So I look at you as outstanding teachers. So outstanding teachers, good teachers, never cease to assess their students, whether those assessments are incidental or intended. Sometimes we choose to assess to find out how much they know. Other times, just by a casual greeting, or you ask them to write something on the board, you find out that this person is not where you want the person to be. There's so much gap in the person's knowledge, and you want to fill that. Even sometimes when students ask questions, from their questions, you can see the gap in their knowledge, and you want to do something about it to fill this gap. And that is what? You're assessing the students. You want to bring positive changes as a result of this evaluation, as a result of testing. Dr. Munir, if you go to the next slide, please. Yeah, so here, based on this description or distinction between assessment and testing, people make distinction also on formative assessment and summative assessment. What I told you about assessment, it falls into category of formative, which is on a weekly basis. It's evaluating students in the process of learning, and its main goal is to help students continue their growth, and so that's the main thing. And the summative one is more like the test, that it measures the students, how much the students have learned. We usually give these tests at the end of a unit, at the end of usually midterms, finals are examples of summative. But that's what, that when we go into a class, and again, regardless of what we teach, whether we teach language, whether we teach computer science, physics, math, whatever, we need to have a combination of what? Assessment and testing. Formative assessment and summative assessment. Here you could see that the word assessment is used as both assessment and testing. So we need to balance between formative and summative. If all your tests, all your assessments are all summative, it's not good. So we need to really balance between summative and formative. Can we go to the next one, please? So Dr. Melody Backman talked about these alternative or authentic tests. So I'm going to give you examples or the description of what is a traditional test and what's an alternative to traditional test. A traditional test is, when we say traditional, people think of the very long, something that happened in the past. But many of these things that I'm telling you are called traditional tests or assessments are happening right now, probably in the country that where you are right now, in the school that you're teaching right now. It's a one-shot standardized test. All standardized tests are what? Traditional way of assessment. These are timed multiple choice tests. Multiple choice are what? Traditional tests. And they are timed, meaning that you give them 45 minutes to answer 60 questions. So they are timed, and they have to hurry to finish that. They're decontextualized. So it's not in a situational condition, but it is out of context. And it's norm reference, means that it's standardized, not criterion reference. It focuses on the right answers. It doesn't look at the process. And as I mentioned before, these are summative, and they are usually non-interactive, and they foster extrinsic motivation. In the field of language teaching and learning, we identify two types of motivation: extrinsic motivation and intrinsic motivation. Extrinsic motivation, which is also called instrumental motivation, is a type of motivation or drive that move people to do something because of outside sources. For example, you have a test you prepare for, a day and night you study just to pass the test. Not just to really learn, but to pass the test. That will be what? After you pass the test or the testing is over, you don't open that book. That is what? That's extrinsic motivation. That doesn't really guarantee lifelong learning. If you encourage lifelong learning, then you need to push for what? Intrinsic motivation. Give them things that what? That they will continue learning, not just one time and then stop. And those are alternative to assessment. And that means it's long-term, it's unlimited, free response, contextualized, communicative task, criterion reference, individual feedback, open-ended questions, formative, and you look at the process and it's interactive. Some examples of this could be like, for example, when you, grade students on putting their portfolio together. Not a multiple choice test of A, B, C, D. You want to see what they did throughout the semester. They put the portfolio together. A portfolio assessment is an example of an alternative to assessment. Some people do not do well on these very formal multiple choice assessments, but they do very well if you look at something like portfolio. If you give them some kind of a interview, if you give them a chance to kind of do an oral presentation. So open-ended question. So there is a lot more that I could share, but because of time, I will not be able to give you examples for each one of them. But if Dr. Munir Musa offers the course on assessment in his university, I'll be glad to teach it virtually and share my experiences. But these are the kind of things that we need to balance between what? Traditional assessment and alternative to assessments. So students do not feel uncomfortable taking tests. The other thing is, how much time shall we spend on testing, on assessment, and on teaching? Remember, we are called teachers. So our main job is what? Teach. So we need to spend most of our time, let's say 90% of our time, or 85% of our time, teaching. We need to be concerned about teaching and learning. While we're teaching, we need to also do what? These informal assessments. We should not be concerned about just testing and prepare the students to take tests. Testing should take just 5% of the teaching part. We should be more concerned with teaching and assessment rather than testing. This idea that I'm just sharing over there, this is not my idea. This is Dr. Douglas Brown's idea, who was the author of Principles of Language Learning and Teaching. He also wrote a book on language assessment principles for classroom practice. So it comes from that book that he believes, and I 100% agree with him, that what? We should not be all concerned about tests. We need to be concerned about teaching, learning, internalizing, and then in the meantime, assessment. Testing should be a small part of the teaching process. Let's go to the next slide. So I'm going to give you a little bit of information about the history of testing. So the testing, the type of testing that we give, it depends on the language philosophy of what is being, popular at this different times. Like in the 50s and 60s, we had this theory of what? Behaviorism, which was concerned with what? With that they believe that language is learned because of what? Imitation, memorization, and practice, and repeat and repeat and repeat. And they also look at the language as a contrastive analysis, comparing two languages and finding out how similar and different they are. For different linguistic groups, they created different kinds of tests. And they did not look at the test, at the language as a whole. They look at it at pieces. So that's why they had a separate test for pronunciation, phonology, another separate test for what? For morphology, the grammar of the prefixes and suffixes and infixes and all these things about words. And then a different test for what? For lexical item. There was a vocabulary test, an idiom test, for example, syntax, a separate test for grammar, listening comprehension, and then speaking, reading, and writing. So they basically broke the language into pieces and tested the students on different pieces. So this was very common for over 20 years or so, and there are parts of it that still some parts of the world, they use tests like that. And in the 70s and 80s, then things changed, and people were more attracted to communicative theory of language learning, and they looked at unitary trait hypothesis. Unitary trait hypothesis looks at what? The language as a whole. They approach language learning and language testing holistically. So they do not break the language into what? Into phonology and morphology and syntax and listening and speaking. They create one test to have all of that together. The example of that test is a closed test, and I'll show you examples later on. And also the old-fashioned dictation is an example of what? Of this unitary trait hypothesis type of testing based on the communicative language learning theory. And they believe that what? Testing and language skills should be integrated, should be put together, should be looked at it as holistically. But then later on, things change. Other theories came, and that was what? In the 90s to 2000, today, we have performance-based assessment, that we need to put students in different situations to perform. And so there were interactive tasks, and there were also authentic and valid tests. And if I'm sure that you remember the word authentic from Dr. Melody Bachner's presentation, that the test should be what? Authentic. And that, so in the field today, there is so much emphasis on using multiple intelligences when we teach, that when we teach, we need to have something for somebody who's a visual learner, that they need to see things. PowerPoint, for example. We need to have something for people that they are auditory learners. They have to hear something. We need to have something for people that they're kinesthetic learners, that they can move around, they can touch things. We have to have something for those that they are analytical learners, that they can think for themselves. Those that they are intrapersonal and interpersonal, we give them time to think for themselves. Also, we give them time to what? To talk to one another. So there's so much emphasis on multiple intelligences, on learning styles. But when it comes to tests, there's only one type, paper pencil test. They believe that's something wrong. while in the teaching we emphasize multiple intelligences, in testing we should also emphasize multiple intelligences. And that's why these tests that they create right now, they have something for spatial learner, musical learners, intrapersonal, interpersonal, bodily kinesthetic, linguistic, logical, mathematical. But the most important thing is that they want to make the task very authentic and valid, something that's happening in real life situation, not some kind of a robotic type of speech. So, or test or language. And that's why those of you that you've taken the TOEFL test lately, you could see that what? There is no grammar section in TOEFL. The grammar is integrated into writing, because people do not go and talk to people and say that I use present perfect tense or passive. You use it and we see how competent you are while you're using it in a spoken form or in written form, not just give in isolation a person a test about whether the person knows active or passive or not. So the vocabulary test is not there anymore. It's not like what we had like in behaviorism, that you had a test on the pronunciation, a test on vocabulary, a test on idioms, a test on grammar, a test on listening, a test on speaking. Some of these skills have been what? Have been integrated. And they created a situation where people can respond authentically in a situation. So please go to the next slide. Thank you very much. This is an example of a cloze test. And the word CLOZE is not an English word. It's a German word. It comes from the theory of Gestalt, which means what? A holistic approach to learning. And the way that they do it is that they leave a paragraph or a couple of sentences untouched, and then they delete every nth word. Every nth means every fourth, every fifth, every sixth, every eighth, or every 10th or 11th or 4th. If you delete every fourth or fifth or sixth word, the test will be very difficult. If you delete every 7th or 8th or 9th word, the test will be of medium level of difficulty. If you delete every 10th or 11th or 12th word, the test will be very easy. What I have done, to give you an example, is that I have deleted every nth word. So you could say that Karachi is the largest city in Pakistan and the 12th largest city in the world. So this, I left it untouched. And then with a population of over 20 million et, see, one from width, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You don't count punctuation. See, let's count again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So the 9th word is deleted. So the fact that this is deleted, and a person could come with the right part of speech, with the right tense, with the right form, this means the person has an overall competency or competence of the language. Then you count again, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. The 8th word is deleted again. Country, which is a noun. So you could see the key here, that the words that are deleted, every nth word, 8th word actually that I have deleted, is, which is a verb, country, which is a noun, that, which is what? An article, or what we call a determiner of a preposition, beta global, which is a compound noun, and then financial and adjective, and so forth and so on. So different parts of speech are possible to be deleted, and they believe that what? If somebody could come with the right part of a speech, with the right word, with the right semantics, that person has an overall competence of the language. We don't have to give them a separate test on listening, a separate test on speaking, a separate test. So this is what we call it, the closest, a holistic way of looking at the language. This was very popular. To this day, it is a popular test, and it is very easy to make. That's another thing. But a lot of time, if you do it this way, from the viewpoint of teaching and correcting it, is very difficult. So what they do is, they, in this blank space, they provide multiple choices. So they provide 4 choices, A, B, C, D. So the students need to choose the right one. So if they could choose the right one, this means that they have an overall competence of the language. But from the viewpoint of checking the test, it makes it a lot more convenient and easy to fix the test, because you can create a key to fix the test. So this is an example of a closed test. Can we go to the next one, please? The other distinction that is made in the field is between subjective test and objective test. And the main difference between the objective test and subjective test is the method of correcting the test, fixing the test. So these tests that are multiple choice or true, false, or filling in the blank, like listening comprehension, vocabulary, grammar, reading, you could use a lot of time like in formal testing like TOEFL or IELTS or other ones. We use machines to do it. The Scantron machine is one of the machines that you put a key there, and then you put the answer sheets there, and then the machine fixes the test. That kind of a test that is multiple choice, that you use a key or a machine, or somebody who doesn't have the knowledge of the field can fix the test, that's called objective test. Because it's called objective because, regardless of who fixes the test, you get the same result. Okay. Subjective tests are those tests that the person who fixes the test has to have the knowledge and expertise in the field. And you cannot use a key for that. You need to use rubrics. Rubrics means a set of guidelines in order to bring what? Reliability in the test. I will talk about test reliability and test validity along with other 10 different characteristics. But the most important one, the one that most people talk about, is the test reliable and is the test valid? So the purpose of using rubrics is to bring reliability. That whether I read a piece of paper, Dr. Musa reads a piece of paper, Dr. Bachner reads the same paragraph. Three of us read the same paragraph, but we come with the same score. How can we do that? It's because of using rubrics. I'm going to share rubrics with you, show you a rubric, and show you a student work to see how it is done. With the keys in scoring, and that's easy because you have a multiple choice test, A, B, C, D, one is the correct answer. You could create a key and fix it. Or true, false. It's right or wrong answer. Yes, no answers. Or filling in the blanks could be what? Objective test. But to test how well a person speaks or how well a person writes, you cannot bring two people to give the same grade. So the purpose of using rubrics is what? To bring two or three people to give the same person the same grade. Usually, this holistic testing, when it comes to reading a piece of writing and giving a score, it does not take one person. In the United States, we use 3 readers or judges. So if I write a paragraph, I give it to see how well I wrote, then 3 people will read it. If all 3 of them come up with the same score, then this means what? The rubric or the guidelines are reliable. And it usually is, and I'm going to share that with you. Can we go to the next one, please? Here is an example from a TOEFL test which was given long time ago. So there was a prompt. So they asked the students to write about it. The prompt was read like this. In some countries, marriages are arranged by parents. In some cultures, a person's company helps the employee find a future husband or wife. State whether you believe arranged marriages are better than non-arranged marriages. Support your position with examples. So this was the prompt given to thousands of people who took the TOEFL test. And then people, depending on their abilities, they wrote a paragraph, or the expectation was that they write a 5-paragraph essay with an introduction, with a body, and a conclusion. 1 paragraph introduction, 3 paragraphs in the body, and 1 paragraph in conclusion, altogether 5 paragraphs. Because of time, I cannot show you all of them, but I show you one that fits the first level. So this was given, and then the grading was done, and this is an example of rubrics. So guidelines are created, Students writing, first of all, one of the students wrote this. You can see that there's a lot of deficiency in this person's knowledge. He needs help with grammar, with punctuation. There are errors with also developing the ideas. The expectation was that this person writes a 5-paragraph essay, and he ended up with only writing 4 sentences that or 4 lines, that some of them are not even sentences. Different countries have different arranged marriages, so there's a lot of problem with the sentence. In my country, many old people, when they are married, date, their first time see each other. We know what this person is talking about, but it's not the way that you say it in English. But nowadays, they are, so, and then he stops here, and then he indents the second line of the next paragraph. I think nowadays people, they are very lucky choice and arrange marriages. Now, how do you give them 0? Do you give them 1, 2, 3? Usually it's from 0 to 6. There are 6 different levels or 7 different levels. So in order to decide what score this person gets and how reliable the rubrics are, so rubrics looks like this. Can we go to the next slide, please? So here is an example of the rubric. So this is level 1. So it says that explanation of the score or rubric is that clearly shows the inability to write an acceptable essay. No apparent development or organization. Sentences may be brief and incomplete and unrelated to one another. Significant grammatical errors occur throughout the essay, and it is difficult to understand any of the author's idea. Writer may have completely misunderstood the essay topic. So that's when it is level 1. I didn't even put level 0 there. Level 0 is that you just don't write anything, you just give the paper blank. Let's go to level 2. So a paper will get 2 on it, that if the paper shows the inability to write an acceptable essay, organization and development are very weak and are non-existent, lacks unity and cohesion, few of any specific details may be given in support of the writer's ideas. If details are given, they may seem inappropriate. Significant and frequent errors in grammar occur throughout the essay. Writer may not fully understood the essay. Level 3, please go to the next slide. Thank you. So I do not have the time to read all of them, but I will just show you that there is a level 3. It gets a little bit better, and then we go to level 4, please. So it gets a little bit better, okay? And then level 5. And then level 6. So level 6, I will read that. It says it strongly shows the ability to write an organized, developed, and logical essay. See, well-organized, developed essay. Specific examples and details support the main idea of the essay. All elements of essay are unified and cohesive. A variety of sentence structures are used successfully, and sophisticated vocabulary is employed. Grammatical errors are infrequent, but a few minor mistakes may occur. So this will be like a fully developed 5-paragraph essay. And many native speakers of English cannot write this type of an essay. So that's why in the United States, we offer English language classes, not only for non-native speakers, but for native speakers at the high school level, at the community college level, even at the university level. And some students, they give them these tests that we talked about. So if they do not do well on the placement test, they call them remedial writing. It means that their writing is not fully developed in order to write these papers for the university, for these different courses that they take. They need to have what? They need to be like at least level 5 of this rubric. Level 6, although some non-native speakers of English from around the world, they can perform at this level, but a lot of native speakers of English may not be able to perform at this level because you expect them to know a lot more about the writing mechanics, about the organization, about development of ideas, about integrating a lot of things. How does this work? How do they decide on that? So the way it works is that, let's go to the next slide. So 3 people will read the same essay. Let's say Dr. Munir Musa reads this. He gives us a 2, and he reads this, and then he flips the paper. And just when I go to read it, I will not see his scoring because he folds the paper as a score. It says M. Munir Musa, and then he says 1, and then he folds the one end of the paper, one margin of the paper. I read it. I also give it, as I say, Siddiq Popal, SP. I also give it 1 and also fold the other end. And then Dr. Bachner comes and reads it and says that Melody Bachner, MB, and then she also gives a B, and then, or she opens all the, what Munir gave him and what I give him, and then it looks that both of us give him 1 and she gives him 1, and then that's a done deal. However, if I give him 1, Dr. Musa gives him 2, and Dr. Bachner says 2, then we have a problem because all 3 of us did not agree on that. So we need to meet and see why I give him 2, why these 2 other professors give him 1. So we talk, we negotiate, we go over that because we want to be what? Consistent. And we need to have what? Because either it is something wrong with the way I read it or something is wrong with the rubrics. So rubrics is just this that I just showed you 6 levels of it. They are used to evaluate a person's speaking ability. Of course, the speaking, you cannot use the rubric for writing for speaking. Speaking rubrics are different, and I could be glad to provide it for you at other times. But this is strictly for writing. So we use rubrics for assessing, for testing, speaking and assessing writing. Why? Because we cannot use a key and we cannot use a machine to fix papers. Although there are machines, artificial intelligence that they use in order to read papers, but the result so far has not been very reliable. So the reliability is a little bit less than human reading. So we will talk about that some other day. Yeah, there is probably, they will make a lot of improvement in that area and change that. Now, the other thing that I'm going to talk about is why do we need to give tests? So we give tests for a variety of different purposes, and one test could be given for a variety of purposes. One is we give the test for diagnostic purposes and feedback. Somebody wants to learn a language, okay, it's very difficult though. How do we start? So you give them a diagnostic test. You find out where is his level in speaking, in reading, in writing, in vocabulary. So you want to give the test so that you make recommendations. You know, for reading you do this, for writing you go this level. Because all levels may not be at the same, all skills of a person's language may not be at the same level. And that's why they need what? They need to have different kind of what? They need to go to different levels. Because remember, the first principle of language learning is what? I plus 1. A person's current level of competence in speaking maybe at one level, in reading maybe in another level, in listening maybe in another level. International students, for example, we get in the United States, their grammar and their writing ability is a higher level. But when you give them a listening test and a speaking test, it's lower level. So we need to put them in the right level so that they can benefit from instruction. Another purpose that people give tests is for screening and selection. And that is basically, I'm sure you've heard the word gatekeeper. So some institutions, they use tests as a gatekeeper in order to what? Limit the number of people who could enter training or limit the number of people who could enter a job market. And so they give them a test. For example, TOEFL test is a gatekeeper. The university where I work, for the internet-based test, a person has to get 92 in order to come to get a master's degree in TESOL. If a person gets 89, I cannot accept that person in my program. Why? It's because the TOEFL test is what? Is a gatekeeper. We use it what? the score, we have the cutoff score of 92 to allow students, because we know that if a person gets 92, that person will be able to what? To benefit from lectures, take notes during lectures, write papers, and interact with other students, socialize. If a person gets like 70, it means his English is not there, will not benefit from instruction, and they will be set to fail. We do not want our students to fail. We want our students to succeed, but they have to be at the right level in order to go forward. So we use test of English as a foreign second language as what? As a gatekeeper, basically, to get into the program. So that's what they do. A lot of government jobs, they use tests in order to what? To limit the number of people that they enter training or the job market. Placement is what you and I do. Most of us, those of us who teach language teaching, we teach languages, that we use tests to put people in the right level. So if you have a program with 6 different levels, then you need to give them a test, and you have to have cutoff score for each level. Level 1 between this and this. Level 2, level 3, level 4, level 5, and then level 6. So you give a test. Not the people do not fail the test. The people do not pass the test, but they will be placed in the right level so that they could benefit from the instruction based on the first principle of language learning. Sometimes we give the test for program evaluation. So how good the program is. So you don't focus on each individual, but you focus on what? Entry level and exit level. And so let's say somebody enters an ESL or EFL program in your school. The first day you give them a test. Then after 6 months or 4 months or whatever the number of the weeks or months that you teach, you give them the same or similar test again. And you compare how much learning took place. So you're not evaluating a student. You're not placing a student. You are evaluating the quality of instruction, the quality of your program. And I encourage you to do that. Sometimes it's very difficult to tell people that you have a very good program. But if you show them numbers, if you show them digits, if you show them results, that 200 people came on this month and got this, that's their medium score. And after 6 months, that's how the medium score right now, or the average score, they could clearly see that you quantified this. Anecdotal evidence sometimes doesn't help. It is what? It is this numbers, the statistics and charts and graphs that convince people. I strongly urge you to use tests to evaluate your program so that you could convince people in the future to get funds for your program, to continue your program. It's a good way of using tests, not focusing on the individual, but focusing on the overall of the program. Providing research criteria is very similar to that you want to test 2 different research methodologies or teaching methodologies. For example, TPR is a teaching English as a second language methodology. It stands for Total Physical Response versus ALM, audiolingual method. You bring 2 groups of people that they have similar level of competence. You teach one level TPR, you teach them English by using TPR, you teach the other group by using ALM. Before you start teaching them TPR or ALM, you give them a test. And then you teach them TPR, use one group TPR only, and the other group ALM only. And then what? At the end of the semester, you test both groups, give them the same test. You'll find out which method of instruction is useful. People could benefit from it. This was done with English and German. Those learners of, those native speakers of English, that they learn German, and TPR showed that it was very successful. That students that they learned German through TPR, they scored 70% better than those that they did it with ALM, audiolingual method, which is a very traditional, old-fashioned, but TPR is total physical response. So tests could be used for those purposes as well. Can we go to the next slide, please? The other thing is, this timing also reminding me of my time, so I have another few minutes that is left, and then I open for questions. Types of language tests. There are a number of different tests. We already made a distinction between objective tests and subjective tests. Remember, if you use a key or a machine to fix a test, like listening, speaking, reading, and writing. Listening and grammar and vocabulary, that will be objective. If you test somebody's what? Speaking ability and writing ability, that's called subjective. For subjective test, you need rubrics. For objective test, you need key. Direct and indirect test. Direct test is that you involve the person in the very action and the very skills that the person wants to perform. For example, you want to find out how well I write. You give me a writing test. And then I write, you judge my writing based on that. But if you give me a multiple choice grammar test, and based on that grammar test, you determine my writing ability, that will be an indirect test. Today, we don't like to do that, to integrate these things. We want to have what? Direct performance. If you want to find out how well I speak, ask me to speak. If you do that, you give me a topic, I talk about it, that will be direct test of what? Speaking. But if you give me a listening comprehension test and give me a score on listening and also judge my speaking ability based on my listening comprehension performance, that will be an indirect test of that. So I encourage you as a language teacher and educators to use direct test, okay? Discrete point versus integrative. So discrete point is the audio-lingual type and the behaviorism type, that you give one test for preposition, one test for tenses, one test for vocabulary, one test for that. That's discrete point. Integrative is like that, like dictation or like close tests that I give you, that you give one test, you judge the person's vocabulary ability, grammar ability, comprehension ability. That's integrative. You integrate different skills. Aptitude test is a test that is to find out whether you have the ability to learn the language. Usually this is done when it's come to language, they usually do it on artificial languages. They create an artificial language. They basically, they want to find out how you can manipulate grammar rules in order to be able to make sense of a text. So that's called aptitude test. So whether you have aptitude for language learning or not. Achievement test are these tests that you as a teacher, you give at the end of the term. So your final exams, your midterms, your weekly tests are all achievement. So it means that the content of the test is 100% based on the content of what you have taught. There is nothing from outside. You want to find out how well they mastered what you taught. That will be an achievement test. Did they achieve what you taught? Proficiency tests are usually, it's not like achievement tests. The content of a proficiency test is universal. It's not based on a specific book, on a specific content, on a specific course. It's all over. Like TOEFL is a proficiency test. You cannot cover everything in a TOEFL in a course or in a program. It's an overall proficiency of a language. And they make the same distinction between criterion reference and a standardized test. Criterion reference is a test that students are not competing with one another. They're competing against a criterion. For example, let's say that I bring you a test and I say that if anybody gets 90 on this test, anyone gets 90 on the test, you will get a scholarship to come to USF. Then you will be preparing for the test, not competing with one another. You probably will help each other in order to get 90. That will be what? You're competing against the criterion. That's what? The 90%. While a standardized test says what? Whoever gets the highest grade will come to get the scholarship to come to USF. That way, students compete against one another. They are not competing as a criterion. I encourage you to use a lot more criterion reference tests in your program if possible. And one more thing here, speed test versus power test. Speed tests are those tests that are timed. You give them, for example, 40 questions. You give them half an hour. The speed. So the questions may be easy, but they may not enough time to answer the question. Power tests are those tests that it's not timed. You can do like open book test. You give them a paper to take home and write a term paper. You give them 2 weeks. That will be power test. Can we go to the next one, please? And please let me know when I go over my time. But this is the last slide I want to share, and I will cover it quickly and then open for questions. Excuse me. When you buy a test for your program, when you adopt a test for your program, when you write a test, first writing a test is a very difficult job because you have to field test that, but it is doable. You need to look for these characteristics. And these characteristics include reliability of the test. Is the test reliable? What does reliability mean? It means if you give the same or similar students the same or similar test, will they give you the same or similar result consistently or not? So in other words, test reliability is dealing with score consistency. So in repeated application of the same test, you get similar or same results. If that is achieved, then that is the test as what? Reliable. Validity is dealing with if the test, it measures what the test is designed to measure. Does the test test what it's supposed to test? If the answer is yes, then the test is valid. For example, you create a test and you, for the students in let's say in San Francisco, California, you use the test that you created for the students in San Francisco, California, you bring it to Karachi, Pakistan, and you use it there. Then that test is what? That as validity issue, because this was norm for a different population. This was norm for the same test. You create a test for fourth grader native speakers of English. You give it to non-native speakers of English. That test is not valid. The test does not include all the items that the students studied. You give the test is not valid. So if the test is not testing what it's supposed to test, it's the question of what? Validity. And then the test relevance is dealing with norming. The test has to be normed at the same population. Like as I said, if you make a test in San Francisco is a very multicultural city. People from around the world, 110 different countries, for example, students are represented there. You make a test to just represent that, and then you take it to a country like, let's say, Japan, and you give the test over there. The norming population is different. The question will be with validity. Replicability, that's a good thing to look for when you buy a test, that if the test has other forms, Form A, Form B, Form C, Form D, Form A, or Form 1, 2, 3. So test companies, they create the test, they create the word test item banks, and then they create like 3 or 4 versions of the same test. So I would encourage you to purchase a test if you're buying it for your school with replicability. I mean, with multiple forms, A, B, C, D. Because one semester you may use Form A or Type A. The next semester you use what? Test B and C, so that people don't remember. If the same people take the test, they do not remember the item, and also the way that its answer is different. Interpretability is how are the results of the test interpreted. So you need to find a test that it's easy to interpret. You don't have to pay somebody to tell you what the test, the score means. So you don't have to have a consultant. You need to be able to easily say that if somebody gets 285 on this test, what does it mean? Where is this person is? So that's why you need to find how easy it is to interpret the scores the students get. And you don't want to give a test which is too difficult or too easy, and there is a formula for determining difficulty. In economy, of course, you need to look at the budget of your school to see whether the test is affordable or not. And acceptability is another thing, that whether your institution, your country in your case, allows you to use a certain type of a test. You may find a test, you may fall in love with it, it does everything in it. But you need to look at the content of the test to see whether your country, the school of the Ministry of Education, or your college allows you to use the test because of the content. Availability, some tests are created only to be used inside the United States or inside United Kingdom. Other tests are created that could be used overseas. Before you fall in love with the test, find out where you can use it, whether you could bring it to the country where you are or not. It's written on the website of each test. Authenticity, that means that you want to look at the language, that it's the kind of English that people use on a daily basis. It's not robotic English, and it is authentic. Means if usually language is produced in the content of a specific situation, that's considered authentic. Washback refers to the fact that the effects that the test has on the learner, that after you take the test, how comfortable you feel to keep studying. If the test encourages you to continue, if the test encourages you to upgrade your knowledge, this means what? The test have positive washback, good washback. If you take a test and then after the test you forget it, this is not for me, I'm not going to do this, that means the test has negative washback. We need to find tests that what? That has positive washback, encourages learning, encourages lifelong learning, and that's another thing that you need to keep in mind. And then test applicability, and that means what? How familiar your students are with the format of the test. So you need to find the test that students have experience in the format of it. If they do not, you need to give them practice. You need to give them practice tests so that they become familiar with the format of the test. I think I have exceeded my time, but let's go to the next slide. Let's see what I have. And what I have in my next slides says thank you, shukriya, and the following slides will say if you have any questions. So I'll be glad to answer any of your questions. I'm sorry if I spoke too fast. It's just I wanted to cover so much in a very short time. So you could pose your question here on chat or through the Dr. Munir Musa, and I'll be glad to answer. Thank you. Thank you so very much for your very kind comments. Thanks. I think it's an excellent way to do it, to be able to be flexible, that if things you feel like students need help, you need to change the format, you need to change the length. Yes, especially the length, how long it takes. Yeah, that's a very good idea to be flexible. Yes. Yes, that using grade rubrics, and also with elementary school here in the United States, we use descriptive analysis too, so that in addition, we do not give them a grade of A, B, C. These are too young, to make them feel like I got C or something. But we describe that you did very well. I mean, so we try to focus on the things that the students did well, and then write another part. So basically, you write a paragraph or two, and then give them tips. And usually this is read by the parents of the students. Give them tips on areas where students need more improvement. You did this well. You did this well. You did this well. Although for the next term, I want you to focus on the following without saying that they do not do well. If you could add that one, I know it's very time consuming, but you could create a format that you can cut and paste these with computer. It's a lot easier to do. That will be very helpful, because these young minds, they want to be encouraged. Again, that will add to this positive washback of the test. Thank you. Exactly. It's the story. It depends on the storyteller. I think you heard of good stories from previous speaker. Yes. Yeah, the product and process approach is that if you focus only on the right answer, that is the product approach. But it's just like maths and like math teachers, for example, when they give them a problem to solve, even if they come with the wrong answer, but they use the right process, they give them some credit. So the same thing. That's why when you ask them to write something, you look at the process. you see, for example, how much brainstorming went into this thing. Did this person did outlining, and then did it? So you look at all of that process. The end product may not be as attractive as you expect, but the process itself could be something that students has learned, and you give them credit for that. So the main thing, or the main focus on the main shift in the field, is that we do not need to focus only on the right answer. We need to look at the process. Yes, the formative and summative, I believe I give you those slides, and I encourage Dr. Munir Musa to share it with the audience. You're welcome. As I mentioned before, it is sharing is caring, and that's what brings me here. The limited amount of knowledge that I have, I want to share. I don't want to be stingy, and I want to do the same thing. It's the main thing is that is the distinction between whether you want the test to be just one time, and if they do not do well, they're done, or you want to give them other chances, other choices. And you look at the summative, informative. You also look at alternative to traditional tests. And that means what? That you give them a chance to put their portfolio together. You give them a chance to speak in front of an audience. You interview the students rather than just give them a multiple choice test. So I don't want you to get rid of multiple choice tests, because you may not be able to do that. Your institution will require that one. But you can do things to make the balance between the two. My last word for Dr. Munir Musa is to thank you so very much for your hard work. And I know that you have also authored a book. I have also authored the book. I forgot to mention that one. That's called a grammar book for teachers. Those of you that you teach grammar or language, this basically shows you what the grammar is and then how you teach it. So there are lesson plans for different aspects of grammar. And Dr. Munir Musa has also done has written a book which I strongly encourage you to get access to and read it. And I'm working on a second book. It's called Listen Planning, and it should be out in the market probably soon, probably in June of next year. Again, I would like to thank you again. This was an honor and privilege to talk to you virtually and share my expertise and experiences. And I'll be glad to be here and share my experiences in the future should there need be. Again, thank you. God bless.
Hello, GFTE. This is for you. Close my eyes and I can see a road is waiting up.